Yeah.
Okay, let's begin. Kum len la blak gemara mitzay Shabbos levorchim Tishrei. We're up to the Dalet of an Aleph, but we'll begin from Gimel and Beis towards the bottom. So quickly recap what's going on here. We had an egg that was laid on Yom Tov. We had different explanations of what we're talking about, and we rejected Rav Nachman. We decided we're talking about a hen that is actually meant to be eaten. So the hen itself is not muktzah at all, and that's why we're only discussing the egg. And why is the egg also? So we had Rabbah who said because the egg that is laid today was prepared yesterday, was completed yesterday, and if Yom Tov happens to be on a Sunday, that means that Shabbos prepared it for Sunday, and we can't have that happen. And therefore we decided every Yom Tov, regardless, even if Yom Tov falls out in the middle of the week, that the next time might fall out on a Sunday following Shabbos, and therefore it's forbidden. It's called Hachana de Rabbah, the preparation of Rabbah, which I don't know if you realize, that means that Rabbah holds that there was no man coming down on Yom Tov and had to be prepared before Yom Tov, and that's why we today have Lechem Mishnah not only on Shabbos but also on Yom Tov, because not everyone agrees that there was no man on Yom Tov. Others say the man did come on Yom Tov. Because what's the problem? You can carry on Yom Tov, especially for food. So what's the problem? But nevertheless, the way we learn Pashup Pshat is that there's no man on Yom Tov to be prepared before. And then we had Rabbi Yitzchak, and we had the other two reasons, which was that Rabbi Yosef said that the reason why you cannot eat the egg is because it emerged and it's similar to fruits that fall off a tree, or because it's similar to liquid that ooze. No, there is Sunan Rabbanan. So we're asking a question we found in a Brisa where it says that if you have a suffix about the egg of an egg, and we're assuming that the suffix was, we're not sure if it was laid on Yom Tov or was laid before Yom Tov, we are machmin and it is asa. Now we're asking that if, according to Rabbah, it's an Isser in the Torah to eat the egg laid on Yom Tov. We understand. If you're in doubt, we'll always take the stringent side. But if it's only Gzera D'Rabbanan, why are we being strict over here? It should be lenient. So we said that the suffix we're talking about is not a suffix of whether it was laid on Yom Tov or not. The suffix is as to whether it's treif or whether it's kosher, this particular egg. So the Gemara says, and then how come it says we got mixed up with 1,000 other eggs? If they're all forbidden, we know there's a rule that bottle berayv, when they're solids, when they're liquids, we say you need 60 times as much. Lach belach when they're mixed together. But yavish be yavish when it's solids and you have something kosher and something treif. If there's a majority of kosher, it's kosher. Why is it that 1,000 isn't what do you call it? So we said, and the problem is, if it's a suffix, if it was laid or not, then we said it's a davar sheyesh lematirin. Why eat it today and follow the principles of nullification? Wait till tomorrow when it's totally mutter. But if it's a suffix treifa, which treif never become permitted, why in the world would be us? We got mixed up with 1,000. So we introduced the idea of a davar shebeminyan. Not everything becomes nullified. There are certain things which are very significant, they don't become nullified. So we said that today eggs are sold by the dozen. Today we sell eggs by the number. But in those days, some people sold eggs by the number, and some people just sold you a bag of eggs or by the weight. So it wasn't a particular number. So if you follow that, even something that occasionally you would sell by number, sometimes they're not, that's called a davar shebeminyan, that's something significant, then I understand. We're talking about a suffix treifa, but even if you mix up to 1,000 eggs, it is not nullified because it is significant. But if you follow Rabbi Yechon, who says that eshadar kulamanos, it has to be something that the only way it's sold is by counting it, how are you going to explain why, if it's talking about treif and a suffix treif, which is usser, why is it that if it falls into 1,000 eggs, it does not become nullified? So the Gemara is saying here in the bottom of the page, I understand this is where you're up to. So we're up to here, Omer Papa, 4 lines on the bottom of the page. So Rav Papa says, Hayitana the liter tziyashu. Where the author of this particular brisa is a certain Tana. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shlakish are arguing in the view of Rav Meir or Rav Meir and the Chachamim. But there is definitely another Tana called Rabbi Eliezer. And this particular Tana definitely holds that something that's counted occasionally is already significant and will not become nullified. And therefore, it's not a problem. The Tana of that particular Mishnah is that Rabbi Eliezer. And that's why we're talking about a suffix treifa here, nothing to do with laid on Yom Tov. And the reason why if it fell into 1,000 eggs, it doesn't become nullified, because sometimes people sell it by the number. And according to the Tana of that brisa, it is the law is that it's considered davar shebeminyan, even though it's only an occasion. Now, which Tana is this? So we're talking about a case of truma. And you know, when it comes to treifa, we say it's bottle b'shishim. When it comes to truma, we say it's bottled in 101 times. And what do? You take one out. If there's 101 times a non-truma to that truma, you take out one piece and you give it to a kohen, and the rest is considered chulin. Because it becomes nullified, it is bottled. So we have a case here where they used to have dried figs, and they used to let it dry, and then they would put it together, and they would put it together like a wheel of cheese, a cheese wheel. So they would press all the figs together in this round instrument called an eagle, which means round. And they would sit there and they would all be pressed together. And after they're totally dried and pressed together, they would sell it each individually, and they would take a fork and just take it off. So what happened was that you had a bunch of these different eagles, and by mistake on what do you call it? One of them you didn't give truma from yet, or one of them was truma and mixed up with all the other ones. You don't know which keli is it that is truma. So what do we do? So Tana, we learned litra ktiyas. So you have these this leader of ktiyas who Damar, he's the one who says that kol davar minyan, anything which counts from time to time, I feel with the rabbanon lebottom. Even it's only an isa de rabbanon. Even though it's only Nisa Rabbanon, for example, Truma of fruits is only the Rabbanon. Mahatayra, the only time you have to give Truma is if it's the 5 grains, wine or oil. Anything else is only the Rabbanon. So here the suffix is only the Rabbanon. And yet, because on occasion you sell it by the number, we are not going to mevatel it, and we're not going to say it's bottles. And who is that? We'll see. So sure, in the case of a suffix treifel got mixed up with 1,000 other eggs, since eggs occasionally you sell it, it's nothing to do Rabbi Yehuda, it's lokish, nothing to Rabbi Yehuda. This is a chachamim, this is a different town altogether. This is what we learned. So you have a litra of ktiyas. You have these things that they dried in the field, and then you cut it up and you put it into this wheel, in this round keli called an eagle, and you press them together, and then later on it looks like a cheese wheel. And what happened was shedorsa alpi eagle, and therefore you press it together on this round keli. But eagle dorsa, but you don't know which one it was. You know that it was on top of one of these kelim, but you don't know which one it is. Or dorsa alpi chavid on top of a barrel. You don't know which barrel it is. Or dorsa alpi kavedis, or even a much more pronounced, which is very clear. Kavedis, you don't know which particular cylinder you did it on. Rameir says. There's an argument, Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yeshua. I'm going to explain to you how their argument is, and that's Rameir's view. And Rabbi Yehuda has a different view of what their argument is. Rameir says as follows: that Rabbi Lezer says, this is what you do. You need 101 times. You don't have 101 times of this. What you do is, you don't have, let's say, 100 lids or 100 tops of things that, chulin for sure, that you can say it outnumbers it and it nullifies it. So what you do is the following. You assume that everything that's inside the barrel, everything that's inside the keli, and anything that's inside this cylinder is included in the number. We imagine we separate the what you put the fig on top. We separate from the top of the lid. We put it inside the barrel, inside the keli, and we say, well, if in total you have now 101, it is permitted. So Royin is Elyonis. We look at all the top ones, Ki'iloheim Prudus, as if they are separated from the top, and they join now whatever's the content inside the keli. And therefore everything inside the keli joins together, and now definitely you'll have 101 times, and everything therefore permitted. So he's very, very lenient. Rabbi Yeshua disagrees. He says, no, we don't imagine anything. It's sitting on top, whatever's on the bottom is all right. But he says, if you have 100 other ones that are chulin versus this one here that's truma, then no problem. We say that it becomes nullified. You take one of the tops and you give it to a kohen, and the rest is all right. But the im lav, if you don't have 100 times, hapumin asurin, everything at top is forbidden. Everything inside the barrel are permitted because the fact is they are separated and we don't imagine anything. So Rabbi Yeshua is stricter than Rabbi Eliezer. That's Rabbi Meir's understanding. So that has nothing to do with our Gemara. But what's interesting is Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, no. I believe Rabbi Lezer is what you say Rabbi Yeshua holds is what I say Rabbi Lezer holds. Rabbi Lezer says, Im yesham meya pumin yalu. If there's 100 tops, fine. Vim lav hapumin asur. If not, they are asur. V'hashalayim mutarim. And the shalayim is mutar. In other words, we don't imagine, we don't bring it together. We just say we look at the tops. If you have 100 to 1, that's it. It's nullified. It's all right. However, Rabbi Yeshua comes along and says, Afilu yesh sham meyes pumi. Rabbi Yeshua says, even if there are 300 tops, normally all you need is 100 to 1. You have 300 tops of barrels that are chulin, and you have one that's truma. You just don't know which one it is. Lo yalu, it will not become nullified. Why won't it become nullified? Because he says that since on occasion you sell the tops of the barrels by the number, therefore it is not bottled, even though it's only midrabanan here. But he holds that something which occasionally you sell each individual, not just you throw a whole heap on, you say, okay, I'll sell you by the weight, but you sell it individually, these tops. Therefore, we say that it's a dover shebeminyan and afilu be'elef loy bottle. So here we have an authority, Bavatana, who says that even though something sometimes is sold by the minyan, that's sufficient reason, grounds to say it's chashuv, and it does not become bottle at all. So therefore we're going back to the previous brisa. We'll tell you that the previous brisa, that's it. The previous brisa is Rabbi Yehuda, version of Rabbi Yeshua, and therefore it's not a problem at all. We're talking about a suffix treifa, and why we machmer? Because it's a double shabbat minyan, and even though it's only occasionally, this Tana says so. Says the Gemara, before we still digressing, talking about these trumas, he says it further. It says in the brisa. But dorsa beigel, if you pressed it together in this wheel, the any day eagle dorsa, you don't know which wheel you used. Divrei hakel yal. Everyone says if you have 100 to 1, it's good enough. Says the Gemara. Divrei hakel hainu. We just discussed that's the argument of Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yeshua. Amar Papa Hachikam. This is what he meant. Dorsa beigel. Till now we were talking about it's on top of the eagle, top of this keli, top of the barrel, top of the cylinder. What about if you did it inside the vessel? And the problem is we're inside this wheel. So you did a couple, not only a couple of them with truma, but the any they don't remember. You just don't know where it is, on the north side, on the south side. Then then everyone says in this case that it's bottle in 100 because it's part of the whole wheel. It's not separate; it's part of the whole wheel. So of course you can include everything in the wheel, and use because and you what do you call it? And it's bottle in 100 times, which is nothing without Gemara. We just digress from it. Says the Gemara further.
I'm not really understanding the mechanics of what's going on here. What's the difference if it's on the top or in the middle? Or
the difference is if it's on top, it's outside of the keli. If it's outside of the keli, then according to the Meir's version, Rabbi Yeshua says you cannot count what's inside the keli to the top. It's totally separated. And Rabbi Lezer, because he says the whole thing is Rabbanan anyway, the whole term is Rabbanan, going to be very lenient. We're going to allow you to include the contents of the inside of the keli, even though it's totally separated. We're going to imagine that whatever on top is removed from the top and buried inside the keli, so we can include that to have 100 multiple, a multiple of 100 to 1. And you can include all the barrels in that as well. And the chances are you'll have 100 versus 1. He's being very lenient. And Rabbi Yeshua is not being lenient. He says, no, the top of the keli, outside of the keli is not inside the keli. You cannot combine the two just because they're both connected to the barrel. This is on top of the lid and this is inside. You follow? Okay. Says further, that's one answer. Comes from asking another answer. Says the Gemara. And because, Rabbi Ashi says, let's go back to our original question. According to the two versions, that the reason why an egg laid on Yom Tov is forbidden is midrabanan because it resembles a fruit that fell down on Yom Tov, or resembles grape juice that oozed out of the grape. And you ask the question, so why, if it's a suffix, are we being machmir? L'chayr, it's only with the rabbanon. I'll tell you why. You all know the rule of davar sheyesh lo matir, and which is that if one egg that's not kosher, if an egg that was laid on Yom Tov mixed up with 1,000 eggs, we say don't rely on the laws of bittul, of nullification. Wait till after Yom Tov. So Rav Ashi, I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to say that it's not a case where it mixed with others. There's only one egg here, solo. But this egg is questionable. Was it laid today on Yom Tov? Was it laid yesterday? It's only a suffix rabbanon. Normally we'd say, well, suffix rabbanon will be lenient. But because it's a davar sheyesh lo matirin, wait till after Yom Tov, and then it doesn't matter when it was laid. So then, davar shematirin, we do not rely on the laws of bittul, whether it's mixed up with others or whether it's a subject of when it happened, and we are going to say be machmir. That's why we're machmir. So normally suffix rabbanon will lenient, but not where it's a davar sheyesh matirin. Rav Ashi says, we're talking about an egg, we don't know when it was late, Yom Tov or on the weekday. But the fact is, you can wait till tomorrow; it'll be permitted. Anything which is permitted, even the Rabbanon, it is not bottled. Says the Gemara, Tanya, we learned in the Braise, the others say, Mishum Rabbi Lezer, name Rabbi Lezer, that Chedim sometimes is Rabbi Meir. Name Rabbi Lezer, Beya, when it comes to an egg, Toichel hi ve'ima. An egg, you can eat the egg itself and you can eat the mother. That's what the din says. Now, the Gemara doesn't have trouble with that. What exactly are we talking about? It seems like you're trying to teach us two din, that you can eat the egg and you can eat also the hen. So it says, remember, there's two kinds of scenarios. One is where the hen is designated to be eaten, which you're allowed to do on Yom Tov. You're allowed to shecht and everything. And the other one is that the hen was designated to lay eggs, and therefore it is muktzah on Yom Tov. And if you hold in the walls of muktzah, and we said that most people hold, even those who don't agree with muktzah on Shabbos will agree to muktzah on Yom Tov, and therefore it's forbidden, except Beishamai holds that there's no muktzah. So it says here that she and the hen are permitted. The Ma'askin, what exactly are we talking about here? Are we talking about a hen? Are we talking about a hen that that was meant to be eaten pshita? Surely. What are you telling me? If the hen was set aside to be eaten, we know the mother you're allowed to eat. Regarding the egg, we had a machlekes in the Mishnah, Shammai and Hill, whether you're allowed to or not allowed to. So all the Braisa should have said is that the egg you're allowed to eat. To tell me you're allowed to eat the mother, what's the point of that? What's the novelty in that? We know that. It was designated to be eaten, so you're allowed to shecht on Yom Tov. Pshita, that the mother is permitted. And she, if anything, only talk about the egg and tell us what you can do with the egg, but not about the mother. So must be talking about Tana Goylis or in Medizagad the baby. Talking about a hen that is muktzah because it was designated to eat to what do you call it? to be used to lay eggs. No, but it's muktzah. And yet you're telling me, so it's a big chiddush, that not only you're allowed to eat the egg, you permit the egg, you permit the hen. In other words,
are you allowed to eat the eggs and the mother at the same day?
Yeah. Is only by now, not by eggs. In fact, the eggs is not considered part of the mother.
It's the chicks you got to sit away, not the eggs. Okay.
Halachically, if the mother hen is treif and an egg comes from there, you're allowed to eat the egg because the egg is considered separate from the mother. It's called pirsha ba'alma. It's the rabbanon who don't want you to eat that. It's like totally separate. It's not like a calf born from his mother. Yeah. He v'ima asura. So to talk about Tanagoylis, that's meant to be gadol beim. And he v'imaz asura. The law is like Hillel that says that it's asur. How come over here it says that it's permitted? So what's going on here? What's pshat in this Braisa? Amar Rab Zayda, says Rab Zayda, I'll tell you what we're talking about here. Toichel agav ima. What the Rab Zayda said, you're allowed to eat the egg. You're allowed to eat the egg. If you're allowed to eat the mother, you're allowed to eat it as well. In other words, it's a certain scenario that you wouldn't have known if you can eat the mother, you can eat the egg. And I'm telling you that you can eat the mother and the egg. What do we? That's pshat the Braisa. So what exactly are we talking about? Says the Gemara, I'll tell you the pshat like this. What do you mean? So the Gemara explains. Amar Abaye said, "Hey Chidami, what do you mean? Amar Abaye, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about a case where we don't know what this hen was designated, or nobody designated for either purpose. It's stam. You bought this hen without having any particular purpose in mind. So we're going to apply a rule called Brera. Brera is that if something happens later, we say retrospectively, that's what it always was the case. That's called Brera. The famous case we're going to have in Gemara Gittin of Hey, where a man has two wives with the same name. And he can't handle two wives. So he decides to give a divorce to one of them. He doesn't know which one to divorce. So he says, whichever one walks out of my house first, that's the divorce for, because both wives have the same name. And when he wrote it, he didn't know which one it'll be. Only later on, it'll be verified that retrospectively is what I meant. That calls Breyer. Breyer is an act that will occur later is going to verify what it was all along. Same thing over here. I bought the hen. I had no idea. Am I going to use it for shchita? Am I going to use it to lay eggs? So then let's see what happens the following day. Nishchata, the following day, Yom Tov. Now, if you bought it to lay eggs, the eggs are forbidden as well as the hen. If you bought it to shecht, then everything, the hen is mutter. And so he says here, Shnishchata, you shechted, what do you call it? If you shechted this bird on Yom Tov, then it tells us that all along, Huvera, it proves to us lachile medes is meant to be eaten. So therefore, it's not muktzah at all. And so the bird's not muktzah, you're allowed to eat the mother. and I hold you're allowed to eat the egg as well, like Shammai, because Rabbi Lezer was a shamuti. Rabbi Lezer followed Shammai. If he didn't shecht it, then huvera, then it means it tells us the legadol bein is there to lay eggs, and therefore the egg is forbidden. So that's Rav Maria says no. You want to know why the Bryce is? We're talking about a hen to lay eggs. So you ask the question: if it's a hen to lay eggs, and you're telling me you're allowed to eat the egg, then what do you have to tell me about the mother? Of course, the mother is permitted. The question is the egg. So what's it trying to say here? Why talk about the mother? So Amadi says an interesting thing. Guzma ktani. People exaggerate. If you're saying something that you want people to believe in, sometimes you I guess you go into hyperbole and you add some things to it. And if you add some things to it, they'll believe. If everybody could please mute themselves. Okay. If you add something to it, they'll believe what the main point here is. The main point here is you want to say that the egg is permitted. But to strengthen your point, you say, and the mother, everyone agrees the mother is permitted because the mother is going to be yeshach. The argument is about the egg. Shaman Hill, can you eat egg? Can't eat egg? So therefore he throws in the mother just to say, you see, just like the mother, so to the egg. So Guzma, he's exaggerating. The Tanya we learned. I'll give you another example where we say words, we exaggerate, even though the point that I'm saying, part of it, everyone agrees with, but I want to use that. You see, you agree with that, agree with what I'm saying now as well. So for example, we are going to learn a very interesting argument in the next few days about a chick. While the chick is inside the egg, everyone agrees you're not allowed to eat that chick. It's called a sheretz, only when it comes out of the shell. So according to one opinion, only when it comes out of the shell, Rabbanan says as soon as it comes out of the shell, you're allowed to shecht the little chicken and eat it. According to Rabbanan, you can't, because the first day, you have to wait till the eyes open up. And as long as the eyes didn't open up, it's still treated like a sheretz, and you cannot really eat from it. So it says in the Braisa as follows: that beya, an egg, teichel, you can eat. You can eat an egg, the ima and his mother, and the efroyach, and also you can eat a bird that a little chick, the klipase, and its shell. What do you mean and its shell? My klipase. What do you mean eat a chick and a shell? Ilema klipa mamish. You mean eat a shell? Klipa basachili. Who eats shells? It sounds like you're talking about that the chick is inside an egg, and you tell me you're allowed to eat the chick with egg. How can that be? The argument about Elizabeth Yaakov is only the chick came out, emerged from the egg, but it's the first 24 hours. Can you eat it or not? No one argues if the chick is still inside the egg. Everyone agrees it's a sheretz. You're not allowed to eat it. So what do you mean a froyach? The chick and in the shell. You know what he meant? He meant guzma. He meant that he was just exaggerating. What am I exaggerating? That nobody eats the shell, but technically you're allowed to eat the shell. Once the bird came out, you're allowed to eat the shell technically. Is hachinami teichel he the ima guzma. Same thing over here. He was just trying to say that we're arguing about the egg. But I'm going to throw in the mother. Everyone agrees you're allowed to eat the mother. And because I threw in the mother, maybe we're also allowed to eat, maybe you'll understand and you'll agree that you're allowed to eat egg as well. Okay, that finishes that subject. Now the Gemara continues, now moves on to a new subject within the laws of the egg. If an egg was laid on Shabbos, can you eat it on Yom Tov? We're going to have a number of issues now. If an egg is laid on Shabbos, can you eat it on Yom Tov? If an egg was laid the first day Yom Tov, can you eat it the second day Yom Tov? And if an egg was laid the first day Rosh Hashanah, can you eat it the second day Rosh Hashanah? How appropriate to learn something about Rosh Hashanah now. Says the Gemara, Itmar, we learned Shabbos the Yom Tov. Let's say it was laid on Shabbos. Can you eat it on Yom Tov? Rav says no. Even though it was laid on Shabbos yesterday, you're not allowed to eat it on Yom Tov. Why not? We'll see in a minute. Rabbi Yechon says no. Rabbi Yechon says if it was laid on Shabbos, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to eat it on Yom Tov. Says the Gemara, the Gemara thinks right now, what's the argument? Maybe Kasava Rab is of the opinion that Kedusha Achasi, since Yom Tov follows Shabbos immediately, there's no break in between. It's like one long holy day. And therefore, if it was laid on Shabbos, it's forbidden on Yom Tov as well. It's like one long day. And it's Asa. Says how can that be? Rav himself ruled halacha zakanim. The rules like the four zakanim that the liba the Rabbi Lezer, according to Rabbi Lezer, the Amash they kedushas hain. Well, if you're allowed to make. He says an eruv tchumen. You want to walk beyond your limit of 2,000 amas. There's a big rabbi coming in from the west on Shabbos, and there's another great rabbi coming from the east on Sunday. So you can make an eruv on Shabbos to enable you to walk another 2,000 amas to the west, and you can then make an eruv on Sunday to walk 2,000 amas beyond on the east, because they're two separate days. Shabbos and Yom don't do with each other, because it's not a contradiction. They're two separate days. If a Rav holds the halachas like them, so why is if an egg was laid on Shabbos, you cannot eat it on Yom Tov?
Don't you have to make the eruv the day before?
You on Friday you prepared for Shabbos, and on Friday you prepared for Sunday, and you can prepare two different eruvim. But if Shabbos and Yom Tov, there's an argument behind eruvim. If you can do that, one opinion says that Shabbos and Yom Tov is like one long day. So either to the east or to the west. You can't break. For example, the day of Shabbos itself, you can't say in the morning I'll walk to the west an extra 2,000 amas, and afternoon I'll walk to the east. So they say Shabbos and Sunday. If Yom Tov is right after Shabbos, follow Shabbos, then it's like one long day, and you cannot do that. But Rav rules like those four elders who said you can, because Shabbos and Yom Tov are two separate days independent of each other. So why does he rule by an egg that is forbidden? So Gemara explains. I'll tell you what the argument here is. The crux of the argument is what we learned yesterday and 2 days ago about Hachana. Hachana de Rabba. Rabba came along and said that Shabbos and Yom Tov are that important that anything you do for it, it has to be, is considered preparation. And therefore, the Torah says, B'yom Hashishi, that on the 6 days when you prepare, that only a weekday can prepare for Shabbos and prepare for Yom Tov. But let's say Sunday, which follows Shabbos, a normal Sunday, since Sunday is nothing chashuv, whatever even though let's say an egg was laid on Shabbos, is not usher on Sunday because it didn't have to be prepared. But Yom Tov meals, a Shabbos meal, are so significant that whatever you do has to be prepared. And the pasuk says, that the weekday you can prepare for Shabbos and Yom Tov. That's called Hachana de Rabba. So why is it, according to Rabba, we make an eruv tafshilin and you're allowed to cook from Yom Tov to Shabbos if the Torah says you're not allowed to? Because Rabba also in Tzach and Daf Navav we learned that Rabba says we have a concept called hoyul. Hoyul is that since if guests would come in the afternoon, you're allowed to prepare food for them. So Mahatayra you can cook on Yom Tov. It's only the rabbis who don't want you to cook, for Shabbos because it's taking away from the simcha of Yom Tov. So the Eretz of Shilon allows the Isud and removes the Isud the Rabbanon. So that's what they're arguing here. Now what? Since Rav agrees with Hachana de Rabba, that means that Shabbos, the egg was laid, so Shabbos prepared for Yom Tov. And so the Rav Isla Hachana de Rabba, therefore Shabbos is laid.
Sorry, but an Eruv only affects a Derabonon. You make an Erev Tashil, and so you can push aside a Derabonon.
Exactly. So I just explained to you that Rabbah holds that cooking on Yom Tov for Shabbos is only Asad Rabbanon. And why is that? Because we employ the principle of Hoyel. Hoyel is that if guests would come to you Friday afternoon, you're allowed to cook for them on Friday for the guests. So therefore, that is why the halach is that it says in Shulchan Aruch that if Yom Tov is on Friday, the rabbi should not make any drushes. You should daven a little faster. You make sure that you finish eating a little bit earlier so that you can cook on Friday. Everything must be 100% ready before Shabbos. You can't do like a normal Shabbos where you have it halfway ready, it's good enough. When it comes to Yom Tov, in other words, if guests would come, they would be able to eat the food. So it has to be 100% ready, half an hour before Shabbos. So therefore, then the Issa is only the Rabbanon, because Mahatayda will employ the rule of Hoyel. It's only the Rabbanon. We still don't want you to cook Friday for Shabbos because you're taking away from your Simcha. We want you to enjoy your Yom Tov. So that's where the Erev Tavshilin comes in. It takes away that Issa de Rabbanon. Okay, so Rav holds of Hachana de Rabba, and Rabbi Yechon does not hold of Hachana de Rabba, and that's the argument. And the question is, if the egg tastes already out, if the egg was laid on Shabbos, that means it was formed on Friday. So what's the problem? Where's Hachana de Rabba come in? Remember, we learned before the whole time that if it was laid on Yom Tov, then it was formed the day before, and the day before was Shabbos, then Shabbos prepared for Yom Tov. But here it was laid on Shabbos. So when was it formed? On Friday. So Friday is preparing for Yom Tov. What's the problem? So Taisa's answer is another shayla. The fact that it was laid on Shabbos, that also is is a form of preparation, even though it happened naturally for Hashem, but that's a form of preparation. Or if it would have been late on Yom Tov, you couldn't eat it. So now that it was late on Shabbos, you could eat it. So therefore, Shabbos is preparing for Yom Tov. And you're not allowed to. That's the argument. It says going further. Emerson Ketanoi. This is a machlekes Tanoim. No l'b'Shabbos take Yom Tov. If it was late on Shabbos, you are permitted in Yom Tov. If it was late on Yom Tov, take Shabbos. Yehuda says, Mishur Rabbi Lezer, Adayin hi machlekes. Yehuda in Rabbi Lezer, no, that even Shabbos to Yom Tov is forbidden. Like Rav said, so it said you shouldn't eat. So Rav, it follows Rabbi Lezer. So Gemara tells an incident. Ushpezichna de Rav Ada bar Abba, the host of Rav Ada bar Abba, Havale Hanach Beim. He had these eggs that were laid on Shabbos or Yom Tov. The Yom Tov the Shabbos was laid on Yom Tov, and he wanted to know if he can prepare it for Shabbos. Also the Kamei, Amalei said to Mai la'atvinu ha'idna v'nechlil machar. Can I cook it up for Shabbos? I made an eretz of shilin. Can I cook it up for Shabbos? So Amalei, because Yom Tov, it was late today. Can you from Yom Tov prepare for Shabbos? Amalei, my daitach Rav and Rabbi Yechon. You think that halacha Rabbi Yechon that Shabbos to Yom Tov or Yom Tov to Shabbos is not a problem because you don't believe in Achana. Afil Rabbi Yechon kasher l'geim l'mach. Rabbi Yechon said that on Yom Tov you can eat it raw. On Shabbos you can eat it raw. But the Yom may lay, but Yom Tov itself you can, because today it's muktzah. Because what Tanya we learned yesterday, achas beya shenoda b'Shabbos, whether they were late on Shabbos, but achas beya shenoda b'Yom Tov, whether late on Yom Tov, ain't metalton loy. So you're not allowed to move it. Loyle chasa was a keilis was a kind of meat. It's muktzah. So you cannot use it to cover another pot. You cannot use it to hold it up and you post over your bed, and therefore it's forbidden. So, but what we see from here that the halach is that this guy held the halach is like Rabbi Yechon, but still it's still muktzah on Shabbos itself, even though it's permitted on Yom Tov. But the day of Shabbos it is forbidden, and even though the eight of Tafshilin allows you to cook for Yom Tov, because whatever. But let's say Yom Tov to Shabbos allows you to cook on Yom Tov to Shabbos. Since Yom Tov itself you're allowed to cook for itself, so you're allowed to also cook for Shabbos. But when it comes to the egg, since you cannot use the egg on Yom Tov itself, therefore it is muktzah. Even the eight of Tafshilin is not going to permit you that muktzah. Similar story. The host of Papa, I'm not say who gave us a Papa. A person came to a Papa and was on Yom Tov, and a Papa said l'chaim. So he had these eggs or Shabbos, and he was l'chaim Shabbos. Came to him from Shabbos to Yom Tov. Also, he asked him, "Can I eat these eggs on Sunday?" He said, "Zil, go away, since it's not relevant anyway." Because you're not asking me about today, you're asking me about tomorrow. Today's Shabbos, you want to ask about tomorrow. The Tolamach come back tomorrow. Why? Because we know that Rav, when he used to give drushes on Yom Tov, and Rav used to give piskei halachas on Yom Tov, he would never give drushes on Yom Tov to start telling you dinner about tomorrow. He wouldn't have his Amira, his interpreter, the one who would vocalize and articulate what Rav said, B'Shum Shikras. If you drink a cup of wine, we had Merry Christmas. If you drink a cup of wine, you're not allowed to paskin. Just like a kohen, we learn from a kohen, shouldn't paskin. So therefore, wait till tomorrow when I've composed and I'll answer you. And I'll sober up. Also, came the following day. Amalei said to him, how lucky we were now that I didn't answer yesterday. Because I would have forgotten. I would have told you probably, yes, you can. Because the rule is whenever Rav and Rabbi Yechon argue, we always follow Rabbi Yechon. So I would have told you, Rabbi Yechon says if it was late on Shabbos, you can eat on Yom Tov, no problem. That's what I would have told you. If I would have told you, Rav Rabbi Yechon, halach Rabbi Yechon. But I would have been wrong. Because Amar Rava, my teacher Rava said, Hilchasa Kavasa de Rav Bahani class. In the following three arguments, the halach is like Rav. Bein lekula, bein lechumra. It doesn't matter what the outcome is to be lenient or strict, the halach is like Rav. And we'll soon see what the other two cases are. That's the 2 days Yom Tov, 2 days Shana. But in this case, the halacha is like Rav. It was late on Shabbos, it is forbidden on Yom Tov. If it was late on Yom Tov, it is forbidden on Shabbos. And therefore, it's a good thing I did not tell you the halacha there. Says the Gemara further. Rabbi Yechon said, give me this, maybe what you were talking about yesterday. Rabbi Yechon said, what happens if you have wood that fell from the palm tree on Shabbos? And the question is, can you use it for firewood or not on Yom Tov? So he said, also lahasikin be Yom Tov the next day. If Yom Tov was Sunday, you cannot use it. It broke on Shabbos and the wind came blew it, and you want to use it the next day, you can't. But al tashivein, Rabbi Yechon is saying this rule. Now, Rabbi is asking a question. I just ruled when it came to an egg laid on Shabbos, you could use it on Yom Tov because I don't believe in the rules of Hachana. So why is it in the case of the wood, if the wood fell down on Shabbos and I'm telling you, since it's muktzah, you cannot use it on Yom Tov, what's the difference? Don't ask me a question why this is different than an egg. You know why? My time of why? Very simple. I'm not worried that people make a mistake because the egg was laid on Shabbos. You could have eaten the egg raw, but we don't let you. Why? Because on Shabbos definitely it's forbidden. A Beya should know that Shabbos is forbidden. So therefore, if we allow you to eat on Yom Tov, you right away know, why am I allowed to eat on Yom Tov? Because obviously it wasn't late today, it was late yesterday. And if it was late on Shabbos, you could eat on Yom Tov. So no mistakes will arise. Chazi legoyma, you can eat it raw. Why aren't you allowing me ad l'macha tomorrow? So maybe you'll figure it out. The bas yema asida. It's only forbidden on the day it was laid. This is the next day. But when it comes to wood, if wood fell on Shabbos, and I tell you don't use it on Shabbos, obviously, but you could use it on Yom Tov, what are you going to think? You're going to think that the problem is because Shabbos wood, what are you going to do with wood? Firewood, you can't use firewood on Shabbos. So I'm going to think, but on Yom Tov, you're allowing me, I would have thought that even if it fell on Yom Tov itself, on the very same day, I can use it straight away because you're allowed to use firewood. I don't realize the problem is because of Neilid. But wood, since you couldn't use it on Shabbos, if we allow you, permit you to use it on Yom Tov, you might conclude, but you might not you might conclude that on the same day is also permitted. That if wood fell on Yom Tov proper, you can use that wood and you don't think about muktzah. And the etmar, why if it falls on Shabbos, you couldn't, because that very same day you couldn't use it because it's Shabbos, you can't use a firewood. But on Yom Tov you could. So if it falls on Yom Tov, also be permitted. That's how I think. So following that, Masa said, what happens if wood falls directly from the tree into the oven? Right? It's muktzah, it's neilid, b'yom tov and yom tov. What happens then? So this is what you do. Marbe aleim eitzim muchanim. You can take firewood that you already set aside, the non-muktzah, umasikin, and you make sure that the majority is from the good firewood, and therefore you can continue burning it. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? How can you do that? Well, but you're also using wood that is permitted, that's forbidden, that's muktzah. How can you do that? So he said to him, Kivan the Rubet the. So he says, since the majority of the wood is wood you set aside, so it's permitted. So therefore, what happens? It's bottled beroiv, and all the wood now becomes permitted. So even if I happen to be turning over a log that fell down or a branch that fell down on Yom Tov, it doesn't matter because now it's been nullified. It's bottled beroiv. It's bottled beroiv. Says the Gemara, you're taking. We have a rule that you cannot be mevatel isur lechatchila. You cannot, let's say, for example, if a tray falls into a pot of kosher, and let's say it's only a multiple of 40 times, you cannot add more kosher to the pot in order to have 60 times and nullify it. It's called ein mevatel isur lechatchila. Some say it's from the Torah, some say it's midrabanan. The Rabbanan said, look, if so, then all the laws of treif will fall away because you just keep on mevatel. So we don't allow it. So over here in the wood, why are we allowing you to bring more good wood so therefore you can use that fire? Well, but now didn't we learn you're not allowed to do lechatchila? So he says, so when do we say that it's bottled? If it happened, it fell in, but not if you deliberately went out of your way to add more het. So the Gemara says, Hani mili b'daraisa. When do we say it's only by dinim of the Torah? But if it's only after midrabanan, then you can mevatel. Since it's only muktzah, therefore you can mevatel. Big machlekes or shaynim, is that the final conclusion? Or maybe firewood is different because the Gemara will say you don't really enjoy the firewood until the firewood itself is no longer there. It turns into coal. So therefore, like the Issa disappeared altogether. And maybe that's why you're allowed to, but not in ordinary cases. Well, Ravashi, the Amud says, Kol dovish yesh matin, afilu b'derabban lebot. Ravashi says that anything which is permitted tomorrow, so Yom Tov, why apply the rules of Bittul Beroiv? Ravashi said that even though it's only Asad Rabbanan, don't apply the rules of Bittul, wait till tomorrow. So how come in the case of firewood you're allowed to? Michael, remember? So the answer, that's only when the Isser is present. Here the firewood gets burnt up and the Isser is no longer present. So therefore, it is permitted. Okay, so that was argument number one.
Does that mean then according to that I only were born on you can't mix it? If chicken falls into some milk, can you add more chicken?
Very good. Big machlek is the Rambam and the Ravid. The Rambam says that if chicken, very good. The Rambam said that if chicken falls into milk, since the Easter is only the Rabbanan, you're allowed to add more milk to, if we're talking about we cannot recognize the chicken, it's more like the chicken soup, the gravy.
Yeah.
You're allowed to add more milk. The Ravid says no way. And the Ravid says as follows. When do we say that midrabanan you're allowed to add more to mavasalit if the entire idea is midrabanan? It's not based on anything of the Torah, it doesn't resemble the Torah. But because basar b'chalav of an oif is based on basar b'chalav of meat, therefore we treat it as if it's the raisa and we're not allowed to add more. And that's halach. Says the Gemara. Okay, so that's argument one is Shabbos and Yom Tov. Argument number two. Eat more we learned. Shnei yomim tovim shel golgin. So this is a very interesting argument. You have 2 days Yom Tov. You have 2 days Yom Tov. 2 days Yom Tov. So Rav says, 2 days Yom Tov is laid the first day, you allowed the second day. Very simple reason. Because 1 day is definitely Yom Tov and 1 day is definitely not Yom Tov. We just don't know which one is what. So Manushach. If the first day it was laid was Yom Tov, then the second day is weekday. What's the problem? If the second day is Yom Tov, then the first day is a weekday. Again, what's the problem? But Rav Asi says, the first day Yom Tov is forbidden, the second day as well. So Gemara first surmises, Lema, Kasava Rav Asi, Kedush Achazi. It seems Rav Asi holds it's one long, both days Yom Tov is like, it's not a fake of the Yom, it's like one long Yom Tov. The rabbis enacted a law that you have to keep 2 days Yom Tov. And therefore, whatever, if it's forbidden the first day, it's forbidden the second day, because one long Yom Tov. How can that be? Says the Gemara. Rav Asi mavdol. Rav Asi used to make havdalah miyom tov lechavre. Rav Asi used to make havdalah between the first day Yom Tov and the second day Yom Tov. He used to make havdalah with the first day Yom Tov, second day Yom Tov, because he says obviously it wasn't when he was in Israel because only 1 day Yom Tov. And he would make havdalah. Why? Because he would say that the first day Yom Tov is Yom Tov Mahatera. The second day Yom Tov is only like a strike of the yom, and therefore made havdalah between the two, or he made or not. It's a strike of the yom, and therefore maybe today is Yom Tov, so he made havdalah, and maybe tomorrow is Yom Tov. If it's a question, so therefore if an egg was laid the first day, it should be permitted the second day. How did he make havdalah? You say making a bracha today. Maybe today wasn't Yom Tov. Maybe the first day wasn't Yom Tov. How can he make havdalah? So some Rishonim say he didn't really make havdalah a bracha. In Shemon Esrei that he davened the Yom Tov Shemon Esrei, he would say about Toydiyenu. And he would say Hamavdil ben Kedish l'chayil, whatever, and he didn't make a separate bracha. Others say that he would make a bracha, but he would say Hamavdil ben Kedish. He would say Hamavdil ben Kedish chamul l'kedish chal or kedish chal. And the reason is he would say that havdalah is a mitzvah in the Torah because there's a big argument of havdalah. Havdalah on Shabbos, the Rambam says the mitzvah in the Torah, but not everyone agrees. But havdalah on Yom Tov, most opinions say is only with Rabbanan. In fact, Kiddush on Yom Tov, most say is Rabbanan. But the Rishonim here would say that Asi holds that havdalah is actually Mahat Torah, and therefore, since we more or less know that the first day is really the Yom Tov, so therefore Mahat Torah you have to make havdalah. So he made havdalah, and he wasn't worried about a bracha in vain. Okay, so Gemara continues. So Rav Asi sfukim mesapkli. He wasn't 100% sure. He wasn't sure. Is it that the Chachamim said in Golus, we want you to keep 2 days, even though we know the first day is not Torah and the second day is not, but we decided we always want you to keep 2 days, so it becomes therefore like one long day, and therefore you cannot make Havdalah and egg later 1 day is forbidden another day, and so once a Chacham made such an enactment, nobody can ever turn it over, or is it? Rashi has a very interesting shot. Or is it Sfeik the Yoma? Sfeik the Yoma means, says Rashi, the rabbis never enacted it. This that we keep today, 2 days Golus, there was never an institution from the rabbis. The people themselves didn't know what to do, so they took it upon themselves. Rashi says, Aleim, from themselves, will keep 2 days Yom Tov. So it was never an enactment. It's a Sfeika, it's a suffix. We kept 2 days because it was a suffix. We'll talk in a minute about what about today when the calendar. Says the Gemara. So Rav Asi himself wasn't sure which way it is. That's why he hedges bets. So therefore, he made Havdalah. On the other hand, he would say an egg was laid. It's also both days. The mix says like Rav Asi. Today we know exactly when the Chodesh is. We know when you're taking off, and yet we come in today, and we yet to keep 2 days. Why do we keep 2 days? It must be because the rabbi said definitely, even though we know for sure the first day is Yom Tov, second day is not. You know what? We wanted to keep 2 days Yom Tov. So it became a Takonos Chachamim. It's like a Vadai Yom Tov, and therefore it's one long day. So that's what he said. Amar Abaye, on the contrary, Kavasa de Rav Mistabra. It makes more sense like Rav that we did it on ourselves is purely Sveika Diyama. I'll prove it to you. Because if the rabbis instituted, then we know the rule is, we'll see tomorrow's Gemara. Once the rabbi says something, you cannot overturn it, even if the reason doesn't apply. Even if you need another bezdin that's larger in number and larger in stature and in caliber to overturn a previous bezdin's edict. And yet we know, it says in the Mishnah, and we'll have this in the Rosh Hashanah. But Yishayna in the beginning, what happened was the witnesses would come to the bezdin and say when they saw the new moon, they would light these torches on the mountains, and everybody knew, even in Bavel, all the way there, because it went from mountain to mountain, everyone knew precisely when Yom Tov was. When the Kusim went off the way, they went astray, and they decided to hurt the Eden as much as they could. So what they did was they would go up on days that the Eden thought would be Rosh Chodesh, and even though nobody came to the bezdin, they would go on the mountains and start lighting the torches, and people got confused, and they thought, yeah, that's Yom Tov. And the rabbis found out. So Hiskina made a new institution. No longer we're going to rely on torches, we're going to have agents traveling all over. And therefore, all those places, all those regions where the agents were able to arrive before Yom Tov, they kept 1 day. And everywhere else was considered Chutz La'aretz, and they kept 2 days. Now it says, so Rabbi says, it seems clear from the Mishnah here, only as long as we had problems from the Kusim. But the Ilu Baklu Kusim, once the Kusim are gone, or if the Kusim would have stopped their fiendish ways, Avdin and Chad Yema would go back to the normal way of 1 day. Now, if the rabbis instituted that from now on 2 days Yom Tov, even if the reason falls aside, we would still keep 2 days. Yet it seems clear from the Mishnah this was only done as long as the Kusim were causing trouble, which means it was never a takana chachamim. It was only a sveika diyama that we took upon ourselves. And therefore, when it was no longer a suffix, for example, once we're able to reinstitute the torches on the mountains, we went back to the old way of keeping only 1 day. And then and where the shluchim came, they kept 1 day. By the way, just a side issue, the Rambam rules, this is a big thing here that nobody talks about, but the Rambam rules that today, let me finish. Now, the Yadinim now that we have the calendar, my time Abdin today, so they've saw the whole thing is because of a suffix. Why do we keep 2 days? If you tell me the rabbis came and instituted, you have to keep 2 days, so it became like one long day, fine. But you're telling me it was a suffix that we took upon ourselves. So why in the world are we keeping 2 days today? Why am I just keeping 1 day? So he says here, and they sent a letter to them. Now that you guys took it upon yourself, we want you to continue what you started. Continue with the meaning of your ancestors in your hands. Why? Because could be 1 day the kingdom will put a gzeda into place, but and we won't be able to have won't have a calendar, you won't be able to figure out when Yom Tov is, will cause problems. So therefore, you know what? Keep 2 days all the time. So based on that, what we're learning here is that we took it upon ourselves, keep the Sveika Diyama, and the Chacham said, continue what you started. So that's why we continue today exactly the way we had it then. It's a Sveika Diyama. The Rambam says, so the law is anywhere in those days they kept 1 day, wherever the Shluchim arrived, they kept 1 day. So they continue keeping 1 day, which is their disrupt. In Chutz La'aretz, we did not keep 1 day. The Rambam says that the Shluchim arrived in Mitzrayim, which means that in Mitzrayim today, in certain parts, like you would only keep 1 day, like Alexandria, you only keep 1 day. But the Rambam says, even in Israel, if these are new cities that did not exist in the times of the Beis Hamikdash where the Shluchim went out, then you don't have that minig of Shluchim. Then you fall back to what everybody else is, that even though you're living in Israel, and he said you can be only 5 miles out of Yerushalayim, but if it's a new area that there's not part of Yerushalayim, they never built, you have to keep 2 days, which is very interesting. So a lot, see tomorrow. Let's continue tomorrow. Eat what we learned. So that's argument number 2. And Rav says that the first day Yom Tov, the second day is 1 day is Yom Tov, 1 day is not Yom Tov. We have a law today, Erev Tavshilin. If you forgot to make an Erev Tavshilin, let's say Yom Tov is Thursday, Friday. If you got to make it on Wednesday, you can make an Erev Tavshilin on Thursday, and you have in mind as follows. If today is Yom Tov, then tomorrow is a weekday. I don't even need an Erev Tavshilin. And if tomorrow is Yom Tov, then this is a valid Erev Tavshilin. So we apply that rule today. Argument number 3 is about Rosh Hashanah. Eat when we learn. Shnei Yomim Tovim Shel Rosh Hashanah. Actually, we should stop here because this starts like the next whole page of the Gemara, which is argument number 3. I want to wish everyone a Ksilu Chesima Tova and a good Geben Shiar and a Shan Tova Masukah. And
you were going to say something about